Okay, this should be good. So, Vivek Ramaswamy has basically been going in like hardcore aggro mode on the debates, attacking Nick Haley and just throwing like every random conspiracy theory out there. Meanwhile, it's such a joke because none of these people have any electoral support at all. They're all polling at like 2%, and Trump is just sidestepping the debates. So these guys are running around and flapping their wings, but it's totally just pointless. So here's Vivek Ramaswamy on Fox News, and from the title,
given where things are in the polls,
good.
and you pitched yourself as a realist and a common sense conservative, and I think quite effectively, just rhetorically and substantively, but you're trailing DeSantis, Trump, and Nikki Haley. So I think her
boom.
drop out. What, I mean, like she should drop out. Why don't you drop out and endorse Trump?
I mean, this is different 6 weeks ago. My view is this. I'm also a very practical person, Laura. I'm talking to you from northern Iowa, where I came from Alabama earlier. One of the things we're seeing on the ground in Iowa, and this is practical reality, is many of my supporters are not traditional caucus goers. They're people who may come wearing Ron Paul shirts, many people on college campuses and otherwise. These people are not polled. If you come to the event,
Bro, you are not the heir to the Ron Paul revolution. Okay, let's get one thing straight. Everybody sees you for what you are, just a transparent, power-hungry politician who has no principles and wants power. I mean, sure, it's amusing watching you in the debates attacking the other politicians, but I do not see any part of Ron Paul's base supporting you.
these are crowd sizes that exceed what the
I've
mainstream
been to
media
the
would tell you
caucuses.
we're experiencing.
I've been to the caucuses.
Yes.
I can't
So I
even
think there's a
count
major
how many
surprise.
Iowa caucuses I've been to. So you're saying tonight that there's going to be a groundswell of support for you at the Iowa
Yes.
caucuses? There's going to be a groundswell, and that's going to
I'm saying
propel you to a first or second place finish?
It's going to shatter the expectations. I think we're going to shatter the expectations that have been
Okay.
set for us. So I like where we sit.
If you're a Republican and you are on Fox News and even the Fox host is suggesting that you drop out,
Who the hell is this guy? Where did he come from? I gotta say though, that is a really nice suit.
great moment for your campaign. Here, Vivek Ramaswamy is getting less than ideal treatment from Laura Ingraham, but let's be clear, it's not in the slightest limited to Laura Ingraham. In fact, Fox News spent all day making it abundantly clear that the honeymoon with this Donald Trump light was over.
For candidates who continue saying that Americans deserve better as we discuss policy issues, it's frankly disappointing and unpalatable that we keep being subjected to what I see has become behavior as a court jester. And when Vivek he thinks the wisdom is himself, like there has to be a line drawn. I just think that the behavior is unbecoming of anyone who thinks they should sit in the Oval Office.
There's no question about it. Vivek is a bit of a clown, but it's not like anybody else in the race has the gravitas or the intellectual bearing of a president, to say nothing of the presumed nominee, Donald Trump. I mean, Vivek can try to play the outsider card all he wants, but he's about to realize that even if you are a billionaire tech bro, there are rules to the game if you want to play. So he's about to feel the full backlash of the Republican establishment.
We've been subjected to unruly behavior that's disheartening, disappointing, exhausting over and over again. That just underscores that. That just feeds into it. That does not give us a refreshing change of events. And
I think it is a refreshing change of events. I like that. I can't stand when the politicians are standing there, all clapping themselves on the back. Oh, we're so great, this and that. I mean, that is intolerable. I'd much rather see the attacks. Get
the sooner that
get some excitement out there.
he steps out, then the sooner that we can get down to actually contrasting. Respectfully, I think the neocon label is one that people want Nikki Haley to have, but I think she's far different than that. And I think the two candidates up there whose policies should really be contrasted against each other, compared to a nuanced, thoughtful degree, and think about the messenger and the package and the experience, is Nikki Haley and DeSantis.
And Vivek Ramaswamy, I think we always talk about all comers are welcome in the Republican Party. Great diverse field. The first debate in August, you watched him and said, okay, well, give this guy a shot. He's like your sister's new boyfriend. You're excited. He's coming over for Thanksgiving. He's rich. He's an entrepreneur. He's going to bring some really interesting, expensive food. And you're coming up on New Year's Eve and you're trying to concoct what kind of illness you're going to have, just so you don't have to spend the night with it.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we are with
Perfect analogy.
Good analogy.
In fact, the hostility wasn't limited to discussion about him. It was also apparent during discussion with him. Here's what I can only generously describe as a train wreck for Vivek while speaking with Brian Kilmeade.
Are you comfortable giving up Eastern Europe? Because you know they're already taking Moldova, already making moves on the Baltic.
This is such a tired argument. The idea that basically every foreign leader is Hitler, they're all going to conquer the world. It's absolute nonsense. And basically what they're advocating for is perpetual war for perpetual peace.
Taking more and more pieces of Georgia, and all we've done is sit there and send blankets and MREs, and we got an invasion. So what is going to be next?
Because we have no idea how Ukraine has spent $200 billion of our money. We're forking over more taxpayer money.
Do you see how they fight? These guys are the best fighters in the world.
And I'm not going to stand for that.
Ukrainians are probably the best fighters in the world.
Ukraine is not some democracy.
Ukraine is fighting for their sovereignty, and they were invaded. They were invaded.
Ukraine.
Are they fighting for their sovereignty? They're fighting for the existence of the Ukrainian state, but who really cares which kleptocrat rules over you? I mean, the sensible thing is to find a peace agreement as soon as possible. If it means giving up Donbass, or Donbass becomes its own little autonomous region, whatever. I mean, end the war and let Ukrainians go back to living their lives. They don't need to be sacrificed at the altar of this proxy war. I mean, that's the real goal of the establishment here, is they want Ukraine to bleed Russia so that Russia is less of a threat geopolitically. But this comes at such a huge loss of life in Ukraine, and destruction of property. The best thing is to simply find a diplomatic solution to the problem as soon as possible.
A former presidential
it just
candidate
makes you sound so naive.
Media doesn't like to report that.
So naive.
Well,
you give up Ukraine, and then in a few years you'll be criticizing Joe
way.
Biden for giving up Ukraine.
I respectfully, we can respectfully, Brian, I think that if I called Nikki Haley naive, you guys would be having a conniption. Let's be honest about that. But you want to call me naive? I actually understand what the heck I'm talking about here.
Really?
Nixon did this in '72. We can actually split up the Russia-China alliance and
what
advance
happened,
American interests.
I think
and protect
World War
our
II
homeland.
is your better example.
I think it is offensive.
World War II is your better example.
It's their only example. Every time anything happens on the international stage, somebody's Hitler. The dominoes are falling, and it's just so myopic and so naive.
One is a diplomatic approach and one is an active war.
Germany. If you could have split up Japan and Germany, then I do think that you actually have a good example of World War II.
You were going to convince Hitler not to go with a fascist nation?
And I'm not talking about convincing anybody, Brian, but the fact of the matter is I think it is offensive that people would sooner use $200 billion of our resources to protect some other nation's foreign border that's not a democracy, when in fact we're not even doing that effectively.
You can do both. It's not either or.
We're doing neither.
It's neither. It's not either or.
And that's the fact of the matter. And I think this neocon wisdom needs to be relegated to the
forget neocon wisdom. No one buys into that.
You can just see how visceral the strength of the war party is in the American media. I mean, these people feed off it. We saw that in the lead up to the Iraq war. 95% of the media pieces were in support of the war. They're just beating the drums of war because it means higher ratings or increases the power of the state. Or maybe ideologically, they just believe in war. the problem with geopolitical analysis is you have to. What people do is they decide that either there's one side and they're totally good and one side is totally evil, and you have to rush in and support the good side. The reality is seldom so black and white. Yes, Russia invaded. They were the aggressors. There's no question about that. That invasion's wrong. That invasion's criminal. Ukraine was engaged in so-called counterterrorism activities in the Donbass region with a lot of casualties leading up to that. More than 10,000 on both sides of the conflict. And I'm not saying that justifies the invasion. I'm very much against war. I don't want any country to invade any country. But the reality is that Ukraine is a very corrupt part of the world. There were irregularities in the Maidan Revolution where the pro-Russian leader was overthrown. I mean, end of the day, I just don't want to be involved in any foreign conflicts. Let them sort it out. It's hubris to think that we in the West can intervene halfway around the world and make the situation better. And there's a real moral hazard if you're giving aid to Ukraine and propping them up and they go on to lose anyway. All you did was make this process bloodier and more destructive. Who really cares who wins or loses the war? Everybody loses in a war. The point is to end it as soon as possible.
Just give up Eastern Europe. Just give up Eastern Europe. Why not?
And Afghanistan, look at those results. The same people that took it to Iraq and Afghanistan are trying to do this again in Ukraine, and it's already been a disaster. Time for the neocons
not
to admit
one
it
soldier is there. Not one American soldier is there.
Something they have done. Well, Lloyd Austin just threatened earlier this week that we are going to send our troops unless we pass that aid package, actually. So,
okay.
Brian, you mark my words. Listen to Lloyd Austin, who's advancing the same policies as Nikki
He's
Haley
saying he's going to send troops that they move
what's
to a
coming ahead.
NATO nation, not to Ukraine. Pay attention.
He expressly said that it's going to require sending troops if we don't actually pass
we have to
the
go.
Ukraine
He
aid.
said if
so
they
I think
take
that
a
this
NATO
is a
nation.
boneheaded foreign policy.